The Gift of Not Belonging by Rami Kaminski begins, for many of us, with a quiet, persistent ache, a sense of standing just outside the circle, watching life unfold through a pane of invisible glass. You laugh at the right jokes, you show up at the parties, and you can make the right small talk. And yet you feel it. The disconnect, the feeling of impersonation, the sense that you're performing a role of belonging that never quite fits. If this sounds familiar, you may not be an introvert or an extrovert. You might be what this book calls an otrovert, a person who doesn't face inward or outward, but in a different direction entirely. Otroverts can be social, warm, and even magnetic in one-on-one settings, but they lack the innate drive to join, conform, or feel part of a group. And it's crucial to understand that this isn't a pathology to be fixed. Instead, it's a powerful and often overlooked mode of being. In this guide, you'll explore how otroverts navigate a world built around groupthink. You'll also discover why genuine connection doesn't require conformity, and how honoring your own inner compass can lead to a more fulfilled, self-directed, and powerful life. Most people fear being left out, but for some, the real discomfort begins the moment they're included. Let's consider a bright, sensitive teenager we'll call A. She's invited to every party, but she rarely goes. She's not anxious, unpopular, or bullied. In fact, adults are often drawn to her, sensing something unique in her quiet presence. She isn't lonely when she's by herself or with a close friend. She only feels lonely when she's surrounded by a crowd. The harder her parents try to help her fit in, the more alien she feels. There's nothing wrong with A, she's simply an otrovert. Otroverts occupy a unique psychological space, different from what we might call communal people. The introverts and extroverts. Communal people, in their own ways, want to be included in groups and follow group rules. Introverts often find it difficult to form deep one-on-one relationships, so they seek the security of a shared group identity, even if it means staying on the sidelines. Extroverts, on the other hand, crave an audience and the social rewards that come with charismatic participation. Both of these types, in different ways, look toward the center of the group for validation. Otroverts, meanwhile, face outward. Even when they're standing on the inside, despite having strong social skills, they feel fundamentally disconnected from the shared experience that seems to bind others together. They prefer deep one-on-one interactions over group activities. They avoid organized events and team sports. At a party, you'll find them off to the side, absorbed in a conversation with just one person. Or they might take on a specific role that sets them apart, like being the public speaker or the DJ. They are natural nonconformists who march to their own rhythm, with little interest in popular culture or group trends. And importantly, being an otrovert isn't a spectrum. It's more like being left-handed. It's a core, unchangeable trait. You either buy into the collective thinking of groups, or you don't. This sense of non-belonging shouldn't be viewed as a burden. When the otrovert leans into her strengths, her solitude becomes an opportunity for freedom and self-acceptance. That teenager, A, for example, is now a successful PhD candidate in psychology. She found contentment not by forcing herself to fit in, but by accepting her role as an observer and focusing on the relationships and activities that genuinely fulfilled her. Because the otrovert's behavior doesn't always match their inner experience, they are routinely misunderstood by therapists, teachers, and even loved ones. One of the most common misconceptions is that otroverts are just introverts, but the difference is stark. Introverts withdraw from overstimulation into their own private world. Otroverts, by contrast, remain outward-facing. They are often hyper-attuned to their environment, sensing mood shifts and social cues. For them, a crowd isn't overwhelming because of shyness, but because they feel involuntarily absorbed into a group mind they don't identify with. They can't tune it out, but they can't join it either. They're also often mistaken for nonconformists, but they aren't resisting group norms out of rebellion. They simply don't perceive the group as psychologically real. Where most people find comfort in consensus, otroverts find it irrelevant. Symbols of group identity, like flags or college bumper stickers, strike them as empty. Likewise, otroverts are often misdiagnosed with social anxiety. Take DC, a woman who was treated for social anxiety for years with little improvement. The treatment was meant to address a social phobia she didn't actually have. She only began to feel better when she was encouraged to embrace her sense of non-belonging and lean into her strengths. Even their charisma can be misleading. Many otroverts learn to perform social confidence through what's known as pseudo-extroversion. They adopt roles like host, presenter, or DJ at gatherings belongings to create structure and a sanctioned reason to stand apart. Over time, most otroverts leave these performances behind and build lives anchored in one-on-one connection, meaningful work, and their own inner compass. The core misunderstanding is this: people assume everyone wants to belong, but otroverts don't. They're not broken versions of communal people. They are complete in their autonomy. Picture a 10-year-old at a Scouts meeting, eager to be part of something bigger. But then the ceremony begins, and he's expected to recite pledges of duty and loyalty. Immediately, he feels like an alien watching a strange ritual unfold. That 10-year-old was the author, and that moment captured his early realization that he was fundamentally different. From the moment we're born, the world teaches us how to belong. Sharing toys, taking turns, raising our hands, it all prepares us to move smoothly within groups. There's a belief that humans are naturally wired for belonging. But that's only half the story. We are all born with an attachment impulse to our caregivers, but the drive to belong to larger groups isn't innate, it's taught. From birth until around age 3, children exist in a naturally otroverted state, completely self-focused and oblivious to group dynamics. Over time, they're trained to share, wait their turn, and prioritize group harmony. But for otroverts, this social conditioning never quite sticks. They understand the rules, but they don't feel compelled to play the game. As they grow, the pressure to belong intensifies. The message is constant: togetherness equals happiness. For otroverts, that message can feel suffocating. Worse, their nonconformity is often pathologized, labeled as antisocial or anxious. One patient, T, came from a wealthy family and spent years trying to meet its rigid expectations. She eventually became bedridden with emotional exhaustion, misdiagnosed with a series of psychiatric conditions. She only began to thrive when she gave herself permission to live on her own terms, leaving her career to become a diving instructor on a South Pacific island. She didn't fight her otroversion. She honored it. Otroverts often feel like dancers who missed rehearsal. So they learn to perform. They smile, nod, mingle briefly, and then slip away. Often they find that skipping events they don't want to attend has zero real consequences. The people who matter continue to care, and those who judge their absence are precisely the ones they didn't want to spend time with anyway. Let's trace how this unique way of being unfolds across each life stage. In childhood, otrovert kids often prefer the company of adults to their peers. They're perceptive and mature, but reluctant to engage in group play. They are content alone and often immune to bullying, since being excluded is hardly a punishment for someone who isn't interested in inclusion. Adolescence is often the most challenging period, when the pressure to belong reaches its peak. Some respond by becoming reckless pseudo-extroverts, adopting wild personas that go against their naturally careful nature. One patient, M, was the queen bee of her school, yet she secretly hated all the parties and preferred staying home with her dog to paint. She eventually found peace by embracing her true nature and starting an animal sanctuary. In adulthood, the corporate world's endless meetings and office politics can be soul-crushing for otroverts. They perform best in independent roles where they can think creatively. Finally, old age often brings unexpected ease. Having cultivated rich inner worlds their whole lives, they arrive well prepared for the solitary journey that death represents. While communal people may panic, realizing their sense of belonging was partly an illusion, otroverts have always understood this truth. The key, at any stage, is self-acceptance, creating a life that honors rather than fights the otrovert's intrinsic nature. So what is the purpose of this unique personality? The otrovert's sense of not belonging is not a weakness, it is the source of their greatest gifts. Back in the early 90s, the author was running a schizophrenia unit at a hospital. About 20% of the patients had been labeled non-responders, people who didn't improve with medication or therapy, written off as hopeless. But the author, guided by the otrovert's refusal to accept conventional wisdom, began to wonder, what if the patients weren't broken, but the system was? That question led him to launch a program that reassessed each person from scratch. With proper diagnosis and support, hundreds of patients were able to reclaim their lives. This illustrates one of the otrovert's greatest gifts: independence from collective judgment. Untethered from groupthink, otroverts evaluate ideas on their own merits. This makes them natural innovators. They also possess immense self-trust. One patient was locked in a bitter custody battle. Under immense pressure from family to win, she recognized the stress was destroying her. So she chose to walk away. Instead of defeat, she felt relief. For her, inner peace mattered more than proving a point. This comfort with solitude also enables remarkably authentic connections. Freed from social scripts, otroverts skip the small talk and dive straight into meaningful exchange. But perhaps their greatest strength is their rich inner life. Communal people often avoid their inner world because it's where they feel alone. They suppress emotions the group might deem inappropriate. But otroverts never abandon their inner world. They know only their actions can be judged, not their feelings. This gives them access to the full spectrum of their imagination, creativity, and complexity. The otrovert walks a quiet, solitary path. But it's from this path that paradigm shifts are born. Free from the pressure to conform, they carry a rare gift. The ability to think without echo, feel without permission, and act without applause. The main takeaway from the gift of not belonging is that otroverts are often misunderstood but are uniquely gifted. Unmoved by social pressure, they are the quiet innovators, the authentic friends, and the self-directed individuals who remind us that the most profound connection we can make is with ourselves.